Welcome to Break Everything. Your host, Lisa L. Levy, will guide you through critical thought conversations and a journey of directed disruption that makes a difference. Experience bold conversations with industry leaders who are willing to challenge the status quo.
Hello and welcome to the show today. In every episode, I interview and have conversations with leaders in the healthcare space who are doing interesting and, dare I say, disruptive things. Today, our guest, Emma Murphy, she's a psychotherapist specialist in disordered eating and now trains healthcare professionals globally in the area of emotional and binge eating. Over the past 12 years, Emma has supported clients out of anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder. She is the author of the Eating Freely program for emotional eating and binge eating disorders and has received the Elevator Award from the Social Entrepreneurs in Ireland in recognition for her work in the space of eating disorders and support, making it more accessible to people online and in person. In her work today, she is building out the number of certified trainers who are using her program with a mission to change 250,000 lives in the next 3 years. Her rich and rigorous training is approved in Ireland, the UK, US, and Australia, and the Eating Freely program is being licensed internationally. For those of you who are used to the show, you understand why I have Emma here, because she is doing things that are making a difference. Emma, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa.
I am so happy that you're here. We've known each other now for a couple of years, and I am a big fan of what you're doing and how you're doing it. So I did the very official introduction, but will you tell us your story and how you came into the healthcare space?
Sure. So I left high school in 1986 here in Ireland, where really women still weren't routinely going to college, and certainly a career in psychology was nowhere on my radar. So I went to college and I started an arts degree. I was doing French, Spanish, and politics, wanted to be a journalist in the European Union, actually, the EEC as it was called at the time. And I dropped out after the first year because I didn't enjoy it. So traveled around, did a few different jobs, ended up in the Middle East, ran a wine club, did all sorts of things. And then when I was 29, I was working in small business development with the Chambers of Commerce of Ireland. And I joined the Rape Crisis Centre as a volunteer. And after the first year of working with the Rape Crisis Centre, I knew this is the area that I wanted to work in, the helping professions, doing something to help people and make a difference. So the day after my 30th birthday, I literally walked out of work on my lunch break and went down the road and enrolled for a 4-year degree in psychology starting that September. And that was 24 years ago. I didn't know what area I was going to end up in or even what area of psychology I was going to work in. I actually thought I wanted to be a clinical psychologist, but ended up training as a psychotherapist and was drawn to eating disorders from the very, very start. So even while I was doing my primary degree, I was doing essays on eating disorders, researching eating disorders, etc. And I didn't really know why, because I never personally struggled with my food. In fact, I'm the opposite. I love food. I love cooking. I love everything about food and, socializing with food and all of that. But I had a friend in my teenage years who had very severe bulimia and anorexia. And when I had worked in the Middle East, actually, I was working for the airlines, and there was a lot of disordered eating amongst the crew in the airline as well. So it wasn't that I was a stranger to it, but I never really understood why I was being so strongly drawn to it until I actually started working as a therapist, and you start your supervision. And it was a supervisor who kind of spelled it out for me. They said, you get the clients that you need. And I have the personality type of somebody who develops an eating disorder. I just never had an eating disorder, but there is a personality type. There's a certain set of circumstances that can come together, events that can happen, that trigger disordered eating. I was able to work with these clients quite well because I got them. Like, I got how they operated in the world, how they perceive the world. And they got me, and they enjoyed working with me because there was a meeting of minds there. But as I grew and developed as a therapist, and you're doing your personal work and, continuing your personal development as well as your professional development, anything that I did that helped me break my perfectionistic tendency, break my all or nothing thinking, come down from my head into my heart, develop a better trust of my intuition and my gut, care less about what other people thought about me. All of these, stop being a people pleaser, grow in my ability to have better boundaries and be more assertive. These were all skills and strategies and tools that I was able to bring into the work with the clients, because my clients needed all of that support too, because I'm them and they are me. And I think one of the most interesting pieces of this whole journey so far has been my huge pivot into not only respecting, but delving into working with and training in, I suppose, the woo-woo, which is the more spiritual side of it, the energetic side of it. And I'm now a certified Reiki master, and I don't say that out loud very often.
And that's a big departure, right? But from a holistic perspective, bringing the body into the equation and the energy. Well, and you just said it, right? The woo-woo side, which, resonates for me because I am that systems and logic, and that person that you previously described in the perfectionistic, right? And going down the list, I was checking them all off mentally, going, yep. But to actually cross into that side that is a little more uncomfortable is important.
It's actually foundational to what we do with clients, because you really do have to look at the energy that you're running at any given time. What energy, what subconscious, unconscious frequency are you running at? Where is that where is that originating? And how do you bring that into your conscious awareness so that you can make a conscious decision to either keep running it because it's serving you, or switch the channel, change the dial kind of thing. So that's been a huge development in the work. And, really what that is about, if I bring it down to very simple language, Lisa, we talk about a lot of our clients, so many of our clients experienced a trauma, usually in younger life. They learned how to self-soothe with food at a young age. They missed out on certain developmental milestones from an emotional perspective, usually because of what was happening in the family or at the parent level. And often that can be cultural. In Ireland, it was certainly cultural, because, there was no such thing as therapy or, being, being in touch with your feelings or any of that nonsense back in the 70s and 80s here in Ireland. So, our program really works on two levels. On a basic practical level, it separates your food from your feelings. But what we really need to do is actually separate the past from the present. And so often what people are doing today, it goes way back to when they were 8, and what happened then. And the memory of the emotion or whatever it was is being triggered way beyond their conscious control. They have no idea where this is coming from. They haven't joined the dots. And that's where the energetic work comes in. And really it's about, if you think about somebody who is emotional eating or binge eating, so much of what they're doing and so much of how they operate in the world day to day is based in fear. It's fear of being found out. It's fear of being judged. It's fear of being rejected. It's fear of, fear, so much fear. And we just literally have to change that frequency from fear to love. And that starts with self-care. And that's the piece that we have to bring into our clients. So many of our clients are very poor at self-care. And I was very poor at self-care. I'm still not great at self-care. It's something I have to work at consciously, a lot of the time, give myself permission to take a break, to take time off, to do something for myself. Like everybody else in this category of person, I'm driven and I want to succeed. And it's all very important to me that, I'm seen to be productive, and, that I'm not lolling around and doing nothing, and kind of foofing. So changing that frequency from fear to love, and recognizing that actually when you choose to love yourself enough to feed yourself properly, to forgive yourself quickly, and to actually focus on your health and well-being as your ultimate goal, it's nothing to do with the weight. It's everything to do with your health and well-being. And there are 3 Fs: feed yourself properly, forgive yourself quickly, focus on health and well-being as the goal, not weight loss. And that is such a simple 3 Fs little, meme or a little, thing that you can share on your Instagram. But actually there's, 12 years of therapeutic experience went into, coming up with those 3 Fs.
Right. And so let's, play with the 3 Fs for just a second, right? Because we know from a marketing perspective, the triads and all of those things, right? I get it. I have 3 Ps. We like the threes, but it's 12 years of data-based research that you have to back up and that you got to distill down into the triad. So it is not about marketing. It is about actual results that you have proven with your clients over time. And I really just want to highlight that, because this is not the woo-woo side. This is the clinical-based program that makes a difference.
Yeah, completely. And our program is, I did a 4-year degree in psychology with, a thesis. I went on and did a further, 3 years of postgrad studies to become a psychotherapist. I did 2 years of therapy myself, did, a year of clinical training before I was ever let, take on a paid client. So I had 7 years of academic training and practical training before I was ever let loose, on charging a client for a session. And I continue to stay very current with what's going on in the world of eating disorders, the research. But interestingly, it hasn't changed. What we fundamentally need to do with our clients has not changed. And equally, the methodology and how you do that hasn't really changed either. So I'm always very interested in what's going on from a business perspective. As you know, Lisa, I am an entrepreneur. I'm involved in a femtech program at the moment. And all of this move to like digital wellness and, digital therapeutics and, all of this, you can't do the work that we need to do with an app. Like an app will never, ever cut it. You've got to be working with somebody who knows what they're doing and knows how to create that safe space for our clients to be able to unpack what can be decades of emotional distress. So it has to be rigorous. It has to be clinically based. It has to be data driven. And our program is evidence-based. It combines, CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, nutritional rehabilitation, the latest research around the gut-mind connection, the gut biome, all of that good stuff. Neuroscience, what's going on in the brain. So much of it is happening in the brain. It's to do with PTSD. It's to do with being stuck in fight or flight. It's, all of that. And then we get into the mindfulness and self-compassion. And a huge body of research has been done over the last 20 years around the benefits of mindfulness and the benefits of self-compassion. But we're bringing in psychodynamic therapy in there. We're bringing in family of origin work. We're bringing in inner child work. It's deep. It actually is deep, complex stuff. So for anybody to think that if they're emotionally eating, that they're going to get the help that they need from a diet or weight loss program, like they're off down the wrong road from the start. Yeah. Because no diet or weight loss program is going to be able to address the complex issues that are driving and maintaining that emotional eating. And yet, when you put your hand up and say, okay, the diets haven't worked, I need help, it's actually, if you do the work, the program works and you will move on. It's actually I'm not going to say it's easy to do because it's hard work, but you can resolve this and you can move on. And that's the message. If that was the one thing that I could get out to the world, is like, stop going to diet programs and the gym and personal trainers and buying apps and tracking your steps and all of that rubbish, and come to a professional who can actually help you resolve this and move on. And then you can go back and go to the gym and, track your steps and all of that. Like, that's fine. We're not against people losing weight. And I want to say that because that's important. We're not insisting that you have to love your body whatever way it is. And, that would be nice, but, I think that's unrealistic. But we say that the inner work has to be done first, and when you do the work on the inside, it'll show on the outside.
So I think that that's really important, right? Because the weight loss machine,
that's worth $495 billion a year.
And it does not work because there's nothing in it that is sustainable. And it is any version of whatever the latest, greatest thing is. And they all start with the idea of eliminating something from your diet in some way, right? You're restricting, you're taking away things that you need. Many of them ultimately are nutrients that you need to be healthy. that mess up your digestion. And you've already sort of, alluded to all of these pieces, right? But the weight loss machine is designed to not help people be healthy. And what we're talking about here today is being healthy.
We're talking about being, yes, we want people to be physically, emotionally, and mentally healthy. So that's our other triad, is that, we're working at a mind, body, and spirit level, and making sure that people are, as balanced and as healthy and happy as they can be. So one thing that you said there about the weight loss industry, it's not really designed for you to be healthy. And it is not healthy. How it actually does its job is generally not healthy. There's a small shift coming. The anti-diet culture is beginning to be heard a bit more, and anti-fat shaming, anti-weight stigma. But of course, that's starting with the medical profession, to be honest. And I don't mean the change is starting with the medical profession. The problem is with the medical profession, because they see somebody in a larger body, and the first thing they're going to do is question you about your weight, ask you to lose weight. You could go to the doctor, and I hear this so often, people going into the doctor with, whether it's a UTI or a broken leg. But if they're a person in a larger body, the first thing the doctor's going to want to do is weigh them. And that, so again, straight away, we're into shame, and we're into guilt, and we're into blame. So there's so much work to be done to change the narrative around why people are in larger bodies and what's driving the unhelpful relationship with food that's maybe keeping them there.
Absolutely. So, Emma, what type of health professionals do your training?
At the moment, it's primarily health coaches and health and nutrition coaches. We're training a lot of people in the USA. Our training is accredited by the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches in the USA. We're approved continuing education providers with the NBHWC. So that's a lot of our audience right now, plus psychotherapists, because I'm a psychotherapist myself. So I would have started with training psychotherapists. We have several psychologists, and nutritionists and nutritional therapists at the moment. Yeah, I'd love to see more medical professionals joining our training. I'd love to see more nurses who are working with diabetes educators, or working as diabetes educators. I'd love to see nurses in cardiac rehabilitation come in. They're all areas where disordered eating it's not on the table. It's not being discussed. It's just nowhere in the conversation, which I just think is spectacularly unhelpful. And all it's doing is driving further healthcare costs up, as somebody continues to deteriorate because the wrong thing is being addressed.
Right. And so as you were going through the list there, right, medical conditions, diabetes, cardiac issues, many of these things tie back to unhealthy relationships with food.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that tie back and influence weight. But if we were to roll it back and do the right work,
Mm-hmm.
and treat the whole person,
Mm-hmm.
and not just a symptom. And as I was thinking through that, one of the things years ago, and I hope that it still doesn't happen, but cardiac patients used to be put on like a cabbage soup diet to like lose 40 pounds in 30 days or something absolutely ridiculous to help them be healthier because their weight would reduce. It's feeding into the disordered eating that probably already existed. So medical professionals should be doing this training and learning this other side, rather than just always focusing on the numbers on the scale.
Yeah, completely. My father, who was very healthy all his life, very fit, played sport, played rugby, played squash, played golf, like super fit man. Now enjoyed life, enjoyed his food, whatever, but like very just normal kind of guy, no underlying issues, no emotional eating issues. But he had a triple bypass at the age of 61. And he went on an 8-week cardiac rehabilitation program. And not once was any aspect of emotional eating, disordered eating, or anything addressed in that program. It was all simple, just kind of lifestyle changes, basically eat less, move more. That was pretty much what the 8 weeks was all about. Equally, I'm talking to people in the bariatric space at the moment, and again, nowhere are they doing any screening for or intervention around disordered eating. And in my mind, everybody on the waiting list for bariatric surgery should be doing our program before they have their surgery, and they should be given after surgery support as well, because the change is so monumental. The changes you have to make in your diet, the changes in your own perception. And if you already have an issue with your food, if you're emotional eating or binge eating, there's a huge amount of that that's attached to guilt, shame, self-esteem, neglect, all of those things. And then you pile on, a radical surgery and a massive lifestyle change, and yet the support is just not being given. It's horrendous. It's practically negligent as far as I'm concerned.
In that last little list, you were hinting at things, and I want to explicitly ask the question. So if someone thinks or knows they're struggling with binge eating disorder, what's the first step they should take?
They should find a professional who is trained to work with binge eating disorder and ask for help. That is my bottom line. But I would say that at the same time, and this is very important, Lisa, I'm really glad you asked this question. Our clients have been around the houses for years. They have done every diet, every weight loss program. They've joined gyms. They've had personal trainers. They've had meals delivered to the door. They might have had liposuction. They may even have had bariatric surgery. They have done everything. They've had gastric band hypnosis. They've gone to boot camps. They've done detoxes. They've done fasting. You name it, they've done it. And they have spent, I don't know how much money, on all of this stuff, none of which was actually the right thing to start with. So they can come to us and be hopeful, but more likely will be very fearful that this is just another thing that I'm going to spend money on that doesn't work, because that's where they are in their mind. And we completely understand that. And so for me, it was really important for us to structure how we offer what we do in a way that met clients where they were at. So there's a lot of stuff built into our program that allows people to feel their way into what we do. And I think that's really important. So, only recently I published a card deck, and this is my little card deck here. So it's the 4 energies of emotional eating. And that's a $24.99 card deck that you can buy, and there's 12 years of clinical experience in that card deck. So deceptively simple, 48 cards, but actually that's the Eating Freely program in a box. Like, that really is. You can work with us online. You can do the program online, or you can work one-to-one with one of our practitioners. So it was really important for us to build this sort of stepped approach to allow people to engage at a level that they felt comfortable with, because this is another thing about the medical profession and and even therapists. The barriers that the medical profession put in the way of people accessing help is just incredible. They expect people to go from 0 to 90, without any sort of soft sort of introduction or helping people, get from A to B to Z, to wherever they need to go. I remember years ago, and your podcast obviously is all about disruption. Back as early as, I would say, 2014 or 2015 in Cork, when I was in Cork, I was one of the first, I would say, psychotherapists in Ireland to offer an online booking facility for my clients. So they could go onto my website, have a read, book their appointment, fill out a pre-assessment questionnaire that got sent in to me, and they came into me for half an hour for a free consultation. Now that sounds very obvious. All the health coaches do it now, discovery call, it's very much the norm. But I was doing that, 8 years ago, when nobody, in therapy did this. You had to pick up the phone and ring somebody and talk to them and have them run through questions with you. And the amount of clients I had coming into me and saying, I would never have made this appointment if I'd had to ring somebody or if I'd had to knock on your door. Seriously, such a simple thing. And yet, with the medical profession, don't even start me on that, don't get me onto that high horse, but they never, ever take the patient experience into account. They never ask the patients, how is it for you to engage with our service? It never even occurs to them to do anything like a customer satisfaction survey or how are we doing?
Right. In what other profession is it okay that you have an appointment and you sit, well, this was pre-pandemic, but you sit in their lobby for 45 minutes waiting for the appointment, and then they're, perturbed that you're perturbed, right? How dare
you be upset that, I'm running an hour late? Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Don't even start.
Well, I might start, but I might leave that for towards the end, because I do want to wind you up and let you go for a minute. But before we do that, let's talk about the hopes you have for the future, right? This work that you're doing, you're wanting to influence 250,000 lives in the next 3 years. Mm-hmm. What does the future beyond that look like?
So, and I am going to call out one particular company, because I'm going to call out Weight Watchers, because everybody all around the world knows what Weight Watchers is. Everybody's heard of it. It's in every town, city, rural village, it's everywhere. It used to be everywhere. They've changed a lot. There's a lot of challenges in their industry. They're not doing as well as they used to, all of that. They've been owned by 2 food companies, so that's and one of the companies actually owned them twice. Their revenue model is built on failure. So their revenue model is a recurring revenue model. They want you to come back again and again and again. I'm going back to Weight Watchers. I'm going back, I'm going to join my group again. I'm going back down to the village hall or wherever it is.
Lifetime membership. Right?
Well,
it was one of their ideas.
Hello. So for me, that is like, that just, I can't, there's no justification for that. I mean, weight loss is the only service that you engage in that when it doesn't work, you blame yourself. You don't go and ask for your money back because it was your fault, obviously, that it didn't work. Like, they're doing everything right. You're the one who got it wrong, which is just incredible to me. So my goal is actually to be the new Weight Watchers, in that I want to have the world's leading network of emotional eating and binge eating specialists. And I want everyone everywhere in the world to be able to access a specialist to help them resolve their long-standing issue with food and move on with their life. That is my big, audacious, hairy goal.
That is absolutely fantastic. And I'm gonna transition this because I want you to take it bigger. So I am now giving you my magic wand. And I give this to everybody at the end of the show, and it removes constraints of time, money, all of those barriers. With that magic wand, what would you make happen?
I would, I'd like to see a world where nobody ever actually had to go for bariatric surgery, for a start. So that would be the best case scenario, is that nobody would ever get to that point where they needed bariatric surgery in the first place. That would be number one. I probably would outlaw bariatric surgery, because I honestly believe it harms more people than it helps. And there's a lot wrong with that current model. And every single organization supporting a client in a larger body would have our specialist training, so that the at least 30% of their client population who are struggling with emotional eating, binge eating disorder, are getting the specialist help that they need at their first point of contact, that they're assessed the minute they walk in the door. Assessment: do you need this specialist help? Yes, then you go down this track and you get the help that you need. That it should be built into everything. It should be built into type 2 diabetes. It should be built. People shouldn't even be getting type 2 diabetes. Again, that's another thing that would be far less commonplace if we were offering this support to people a lot sooner.
And what's interesting to me in that, we'll play with bariatric surgery a little bit in a second, because I think you and I both have an opinion on the topic. But the type 2 diabetes should never happen, right? Many people who have been guests and sat in this conversation with me, when I give them the magic wand, I have yet to hear somebody say, I would create this device that would do something. Rolling it back to education, to knowledge, has popped up, I'm going to say 90% of the time. And that knowledge and understanding about food is the recurring theme that I've heard. And I find that interesting, as we've talked about so many different topics in this format, that food is such a big deal that we don't understand and use for ourselves nutritionally correctly. So thank you for sharing that, but let's talk a little bit about bariatric surgery, because I know that it'll be fun. So I will start with we've had this conversation because I am a patient who has had bariatric surgery with what I will call limited success.
Yeah.
Certainly more so than many other people, but also somebody who would say I would never, ever, ever recommend it to anybody unless it was legitimately life-saving intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere along the lines, we lost sight of that. And I'll take it bigger than maybe just bariatric surgery, but that surgery as an intervention is now sort of because I want it and not because I have to have it medically necessary. And that's scary to me as a person saying that I have that kind of control. I don't think it's appropriate. I am not trained. I have no medical background. My Google MD is not worthy. Yeah. And yet I can go in and say, yes, I want to have this surgery because I have struggled with my weight through my entire adult life. And there are questions that I was asked through that process. And one of them was, do you have an eating disorder? Or do you binge eat? And I said, yes, I eat emotionally. And when I'm eating emotionally, I binge. And the person doing the intake form looked at me and said, yeah, I don't think that that's true. And if it were, I would have to disqualify you right now. So I'm marking that as a no. Yeah. So that they could continue through the process to give me a surgery that would not solve my problem, because the problem, right, weight is a symptom of a larger problem. Mm-hmm. And this is becoming more and more common, not less and less. It's terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying. And the more research I did into bariatric surgery, and there's a particular reason why I'm looking at bariatric surgery at the moment, the more I understood, if I trot out my normal statistic of like at least 30 people, 30% of people who are seeking weight loss support meet the criteria for binge eating disorder, it goes up to nearly 60% in the bariatric patient, population. And if they didn't have a disordered relationship with food before they went for the surgery, up to 38% of them develop a disordered relationship with food after they have the surgery. And yet there's little to no psychological support being given to those patients. And as you say, it is a choice. They can rock up, I want this surgery, an assessment is done, and if they pass the test, they're allowed to have the surgery. And in Ireland now, there is an assessment criteria, and if you don't pass it, I've been told by psychologists who are doing that intake process that the patient will just turn around and say, well, that's fine, then I'm just going to go to Turkey. Because you could rock up in Turkey, no questions asked, pay €4,000, and somebody will do bariatric surgery, will give you a bariatric procedure, and then you're sent home on a plane with no aftercare, no follow-up, no nothing. Like, that is actually, like, in what world is that actually, allowed? It's just, it boggles my mind.
Yeah. In the US, people go to Mexico, right? There's everybody has a destination that is close and convenient and accessible to get what they probably don't actually need. Emma, thank you so much for being here with us today. This has been a great conversation, and the work that you're doing and the growth that you're experiencing with your program internationally, I am so excited for you. For the audience watching today, thank you, or listening on your favorite streaming podcast platform. We appreciate you being here with us. And that concludes our show. Have a great rest of your day.
You have just experienced Break Everything with Lisa L. Levy. Critical conversations on directed disruption that makes a difference.